Chapter 6, verses 1 through 100. 1. Deference is the primal wellspring of all vitality's creation, which is the creation of all firmaments, universe, and earths, worlds, planets, of the darkness and the light. But there are many amongst you who place other things as equal to the primal wellspring of all vitality's creation, principally fabulated, conceived, invented, gods and tin gods, because you are unknowing in the truth, and only lend your ear to, believe in, lies and slanders, calumnies. 2. You have proceeded from the might, idea, of the primal wellspring of all life, creation, and it is through it that your destination is determined, which you shall reach through the unbidden, voluntarily, unfolding, evolution of your inner world consciousness, so that you become one in a bond agreement, with it becoming one with creation, in the very distant time to come, future. 3. Therefore, your destination in the very distant time to come, future equals eons of years, is determined, which you shall however reach in unbiddenness, voluntariness, over considerable, many existences, lives, that you will have again and again as new people of your kind, personalities, after you have died and are called back into existence, life, through your spirit body, spirit form. 4. And truly, it is the primal wellspring of all vitality's creation that has given its laws and recommendations for all firmaments, universe, and for the earth's, worlds, planets, so that everywhere and in all things, externally and internally, everything is given so, and as everything is necessary. 5. And nothing comes to you without you bringing it forth yourselves, whether it be love or unlove, peace or unpeace, hatred, pathological craving for revenge and pathological craving for retaliation, suspicion, battle, war, or freedom and unfreedom, bondage, and everything that can be imagined, because truly all signs, activities, of the signs' destiny, which come are created by you yourselves, both in the good and in the evil. 6. And if you reject the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitality's creation, as they are recognizable to you, if you go forth with open eyes, then you will yourselves become knowing of what you are mocking. 7. Look back from yourselves into the past, and you will recognize how many peoples and species, family, clan, have eradicated themselves or have been eradicated by others. They had firm residences on earth, but they allowed clouds, strife, war, to grow over themselves and allowed streams of rain, spilling of blood, to befall themselves, and they swam therein until they drowned, died out, and their residences and their places, cities, villages, were destroyed, and everything eradicated that bore witness to them. But after them came other peoples and species, families, clans, but they did the same as their predecessors. 8. And truly, even before you there came true prophets to your forefathers and foremothers, forebears before them. Long before the true prophets from the line of the seven from the line of Nocademian came to your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears, in order to instruct them in the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitality's creation. But they rejected and slandered, calumniated, and falsified the teaching of the prophets. And the same was done by those scribes who were instructed by the prophets to put the teaching into writing, write down, record it, so that their work was merely lies and deception. And truly, if the prophets had written the writing themselves, and if your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears, had felt with their hands or read the writing, if they had been capable of writing, reading had not been illiterate ones, then in their unknowledgeness of the truth, and in their self-deception, self-delusion, of suggestive trickery, magic, they would have attacked, accused the work of the prophets as being evident activities of the shadow world, activities of hell, and would have killed, murdered, the true prophets as servants of the devil. So the matter would not have rested with willingness, striving, for persecution and killing. 9. If the true prophets had brought the writing of the truth teaching to your forefathers and forefathers, and to your foremothers and foremothers, forebears before them, ancestors, forebears, if they had been capable of reading, then they would have considered this to be the work of the devil, because it would not have been a writing by their scribes and would not have been accepted. Therefore it is recommended to you that you learn at first hand, directly, from the true prophets and from the true handed-down knowledge. But beware of the false handed-down knowledge of the scribes, because their teachings are falsified and far from all truthfulness. but the teaching of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, shall be given to you in good word language, and in clear writing as the source book of the truth when the last true prophet of the line of Nocademian teaches the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, so that it may remain word for word in its expression, explanation, presentation, and may be understandable to you, because then in the new time you are literate, capable of reading and writing, and understand the words of the teaching of the prophets, so that miscomprehension, misunderstandings, vanish from you. 10. Truly, the source of wisdom, book of wisdom, could be given to you by a true prophet already before that far-off time. Then it would be if it were to be feasible, possible. But the possibility can only be if the necessary contingencies, conditions, will be given so that the source of wisdom, book of wisdom, reaches the hands of all those who are ready for it. Therefore, it is still necessary to give you a deferment until the new time. However, after that you will no longer be able to trot out the usual pretexts, excuses, that you had not been brought the real truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, in the form of the teaching of the prophets as the goblet of the truth. 11. And truly, if it had been determined that more true prophets would come to you, then they would have appeared to you, but not as fabulated, invented liberators, angels, or as supposed envoys of gods and tin gods, because true prophets are people of your kind, human beings, and therefore also in the shape of people of your kind, human form. Therefore true prophets cannot appear to you as higher Wesenheiten, because this would merely make you more confused than you already are. 12. However, just as your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears, before you mocked the true prophets and lent their ear, believed in, the false prophets, so you are doing the same, but by mocking the true prophets, you are only mocking yourselves. 13. Truly, walk over the earth and see how miserable has been the end of those who treated the true prophets as liars. And walk over the earth, and look how people of your kind, fellow human beings, are at present wallowing in unright and killing, in jealousy, hatred, lovelessness, and battle, war, and do not know either peace or freedom or consonance, harmony, because they do not follow the teaching of the prophets, and they treat them as liars, persecute them, slander, calumniate them, dishonor them, and strive to kill them. 14. But consider that the true prophets do not allow themselves to be driven forth from you. Rather, they grant you forgiveness for what you do to them and continue to fulfill their duty that they take, load, on themselves unbidden voluntarily, in order to instruct you, you who deprave your thoughts and your feelings, in the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. And there is no doubt about the righteousness, conscientiousness of the true prophets. 15. Truly, everything that dwells and moves in the night and day belongs to the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. But all is given to you by it, so that you may look after it and bring it to blossom. 16. Through the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. Through the creation of the firmaments, universe, and the earth's, worlds, planets, which itself enjoys nothing of food and drink such as you need them. Everything is given to you which you need for life, food and drink, and everything that you desire. 17. And through the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, it is recommended to you that you dedicate yourselves to the guidelines, guiding rules of the laws and recommendations, so that you may be all faithful to the laws and faithful to the recommendations, and that there may be none amongst you who places fabulated, invented gods or tin gods or people of your kind, human beings, as gods or emissaries of God, or as representatives, substitutes, at the side of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. 18. Truly, you shall be afraid of what you do that is unrightful, because in its good time all your unright will have an effect on yourselves. If you do not follow the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, then you are acting, living, falsely towards your innermost nature of the Spirit, so that you form your inner nature falsely and are disobedient to yourselves. 19. If you remain saved from your own disobedience, if you turn to the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, then you are bestowing yourselves benevolence and an open, blissful happiness. 20. However, if you turn away from the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, then do not be surprised if you are pursued by unfortune, such as no people of your kind, fellow human beings, can take away from you. So it pursues you until you become rightful and become connected to the truth. And if you are willing to make a bond with the truth, then you will be touched by happiness, because it has the might to give you your inner peace, freedom and consonance, harmony, so that you may also live in love and take joy in your own existence life. 21. The truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, does not demand that you be subservient to it in submissiveness or be its servants, hands helpers. Rather, it recommends that you become knowing ones, ones who have knowledge, and wise ones in uncoercedness, voluntariness, by dedicating your existence, life, to the truth. 22. And if you ask yourselves what thing is for you the most important proof of your existence, life, then you recognize the truth in the truliness, irrefutability, in all things of the existence, and the witness of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. 23. And these things are obvious, recognizable, to you through the teaching of the prophets, through the goblet of the truth, so that you may understand and so that you are all warned through the teaching against doing things that are unrightful. And the truth teaching is given so that it reaches everyone amongst you who want to be reached by it. 24. And truly, you cannot really bear witness to the existence of other mights that are equal to the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. And if you place gods and tin gods or people of your kind, human beings, next to the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, then all of that is only the work of people of your kind, work of human beings. And truly, if gods or tin gods are named, then they are only people of your kind, human beings, to whom a high designation, title, of God or tin God has been imputed and bestowed, awarded. But truly these cannot be set as the equivalent of or placed next to the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. Truly the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, is the only one of its nature, kind, form, and it is far from beyond all those things, gods and tin gods and people of your kind, human beings, which you place at its side. 25. Those amongst you to whom the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life is given, and who with your daughters and sons recognize, see, the truth and follow it, you will live in gladness and fulfill, master, your existence, life, in deference, venerability. But those amongst you who do not follow the truth, you are depraving yourselves and yourselves, and you are unsatisfied with everything that is given to you through the existence, life. 26. And who is more unfair, more irresponsible, than those amongst you who concoct lies against the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and against the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, itself, and you who accuse its signs, unsurpassabilities, of being lies which you can recognize, see, in their appearance, nature? 27. And if you turn to the truth, then ask yourselves, because you recognize the truth, how it can be that people of your kind, human beings, pray to fabulated gods and tin gods and people of your kind, fellow human beings, who pass themselves off as their representatives, substitutes, or servants, hands helpers, since no gods or tin gods and no people of your kind, human beings, as their representatives, substitutes, can be placed next to the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, because it is sublime over all things. 28. Truly, it is only when you start to liberate yourselves from the enticement of your false prophet and false teachings that you recognize that you were servants of gods and servants of tin gods and prayed to insubstantialities. And only then do you recognize that you once again not only are lying against the truth, but that you are lying to yourselves and are slandering, calumniating yourselves, which is why everything that you concoct unrightfully betrays, abandons you. 29. Truly, amongst you there are many who listen to the truth and yet have placed a veil over your true discernment, intellect, so that you cannot understand, and you have shut up your ears with deafness so that you cannot hear the truth in its value. And even if you see the signs, evidence of the truth with your eyes, then you place a veil over it so that you cannot see truly, because you are fighting in yourselves against the truth and the untruth, with the effect that you cannot overcome the inner resistance and decide for the real truth and finally explain, teach, everything merely as fables of the old ones. 30. And those amongst you who hypocritically boast of having knowledge of the truth and yet do not act according to it, because you keep yourselves far from it, you dare to forbid people of your kind, fellow human beings, to turn to the truth. Therefore you are casting people of your kind, fellow human beings, into ruin just as yourselves. It is just that you do not understand it. 31. If you could only see how you are placing yourselves into the fire of iniquity, unfairness, then you would wish that you could turn back to the truth, although you are deprived of this because you treat the signs, evidence, of the truth as lies and are believers in godliness, religion, and its gods and tin gods. 32. And those amongst you who have turned to the truth but have not yet become clear about what you used to conceal, falsify, and deny, with regard to the truth, you are constantly on the edge of the abyss, run the risk of returning to forbidden things, falling back into unknowledgeness, and once again becoming ample liars and slanderers, calumniators of the truth if you do not strengthen yourselves in what has been proclaimed, announced to you through the truth teaching. 33. And be certain, knowing that there is no other life than the corporeal, earthly one, and therefore the mortal life in which you can fulfill, master, your conscientiousness, duty, in ample obligation, responsibility, for your unfolding evolution, for your inner world consciousness. And when you die, then you cannot be reawakened, because your inner world consciousness and your all of yourself, personality, is dissolved into unsubstantial activity, energy, from which a new all of yourself, personality, and a new inner world consciousness is formed and born, together with the reawakening, rebirth, reincarnation of the spirit body, spirit form. 34. And the other life after dying is the death life in the world of invisibility, other world, and you cannot either see or grasp it because it is of fineness, fine fluidalness, and the world, sphere level, of the incorporeal, spiritual, is of unearthly appearance, nature. 35. Truly, you shall be knowing, conscious, in the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, so that you are not losers and do not deny the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. Be knowing, conscious, in the truth, so that the hour does not come on you unexpectedly when woe befalls you, because you neglected the truth and the truth teaching, and you have to carry a heavy load on your back under which you collapse because you are too heavily loaded with unright and unrighteousness, consciencelessness, with inequity, unfairness, and virtuelessness. 36. Life in this world is not a game and no pastime, but an existence, life, for the fulfillment of the conscientiousness, duty, and obligation, responsibility, to give fullness, satisfaction, to the unfolding, evolving, of the inner world consciousness, and for creating knowledge and wisdom, as well as love and peace and consonance, harmony, and freedom. Truly, you should understand this. 37. You are sad in your thoughts and feelings, and you become enraged if the truth is proclaimed, announced, to you through the true prophets. Therefore you accuse them of falseness, deviousness, and deny the signs, marvels, that they do as activities of the shadow world, activities of hell, and outrages, crimes, against your fabulated, invented gods and tin gods. 38. Truly, in your unknowledge about the truth, you have since time immemorial accused the truth teaching and the prophets as being fallacious, and you also do the same thing today. But despite your persecution and slander, calumny, they remain patient, as they still remain patient today, and give you their help and teach you the teaching of the prophets. And truly, there is not one amongst you who could change even one word of the truth of the teaching of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. So the tidings of the teaching of the prophets will remain preserved for all time as the goblet of the truth. 39. And when your own unwillingness towards the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life becomes painful to you, then it seems to you as if you were sinking into a deep shaft in the earth. However, if you find willingness and gratification in the truth teaching, then it is to you as if you had found a ladder leading to the firmaments, universe, and were receiving signs, evidence, of the truth from there. Therefore it is your will to decide whether you will sink into the earth because of your unknowledge, or whether you will climb into the firmaments, universe, through your truth knowledge and the love and consonance, harmony, that proceeds out it as well as the freedom and peace in yourselves. 40. And truly, you can only listen and absorb, learn, as long as you are alive, connected to the truth and knowing. But when you are dead, not connected to the truth and unknowing, then you cannot listen and cannot absorb, learn. Therefore you must awaken yourselves to the truth first, so that you may become alive, connected to the truth and knowing. 41. Truly, you cannot say that no signs, evidence, have been given to you through the prophets regarding the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, because they have been given to you on many occasions, as the truth teaching has been proclaimed, announced to you time and time again, but you have treated it with contempt and are now obliged to search for it anew. 42. And you have been taught that all animals and other creatures on earth are collectives, just as you. So each bird that flies on its wings, and each fish that swims, as well as every animal that runs, and countless others that crawl and fly. 43. Those amongst you, however, who do not heed these things and reject the signs, evidence, of the truth, you are deaf and dumb in yourselves, and you live in darkness in your inner world, consciousness, without knowledge, love, and wisdom, and without peace, freedom, and consonance, harmony, because you are going into confusion and are refusing to walk on the right way, which leads you to the light of the truth. 44. Consider your existence, life, in all things, so that you are not sad and not full of fear when the hour, death, catches up with you, so that you may pass away, die, in peace and joy. 45. Truly, when your hour, death, comes, then you will call for the truth, but you will not forget what evil and terrible things you have done in your life. Therefore you will pass away, die, in fear. 46. Be certain, knowing, that you will always be rewarded according to how you lead your life in all things, because whatever you take in your hand, do, you create your own reward with it. This is given through the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, so that you may receive your reward in equitableness, fairness, according to how you conduct, care for, your thoughts and feelings, and how you carry out your deeds. 47. Therefore consider that it is you yourselves who form your foreordination, destiny. Therefore it is not the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, because they merely advise you what results as gain, activity, from the wellspring of power, cause. Truly, you alone form everything, therefore you create tribulation and misery for yourselves and humiliate yourselves if you do not heed and follow the guidelines, basic rules, of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. 48. There is no law and no recommendation of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, that demands submissiveness or other subservience from you, because submissiveness is a punishable disparagement, contemptibility, that is only demanded by people of your kind, human beings, for people of your kind, fellow human beings, in order to keep you in abasement, subservient servitude, so that you can be exploited in every possible wise. And truly, as the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and its laws and recommendations do not demand submissiveness from you. Neither do they demand any punishment for what you do in inequity, unfairness, and unrighteousness, consciencelessness, as well as in virtuelessness and in unknowledge of the truth, because what punishment you suffer is what you inflict on yourselves when you harden your thoughts and feelings and your inner world, consciousness, as well as your psyche, because in yourselves you consider everything evil as well done, convenience, and are willingly devoted to it. 49. Truly, you continually forget what admonishments are granted to you through the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, which opens the gateway of all things, knowledge and wisdom, to you so that you can comprehend, understand everything, so that you can take joy in all things and do not cast yourselves into darkness, despair. 50. Do not be malefactors, irresponsible ones, against the truth, neither as a people nor as a single one, individual, but obtain for yourselves the gain, reward, that comes forth to you from the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, if you follow them. 51. If your hearing and your face, eyesight, were taken away and your inner world, consciousness, sealed, then you would be deaf and blind and without thoughts and feelings, and no one could give you the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, because you could not hear anything, see anything, or comprehend, understand anything in true discernment, intellect. But even without your hearing and your face, eyesight, being taken away, and without your inner world, consciousness, being sealed, so that you can hear and see and use your true discernment, intellect, you still turn away from the teaching of the truth and do not heed the manifold signs, evidence, which are given to you through the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and through its appearance, nature. 52. If an unexpected and evident punishment were meted out on you through the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, or through its laws and recommendations, as people of your kind, human beings, mete out punishment on people of your kind, fellow human beings, then you would be destroyed as a people and as single ones, individual ones. But the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, is fair and does not mete out punishment on its creatures and creations, because punishment is a concoction, invention, by people of your kind, human beings in deviancy and Ausartung. 53. Truly, you can learn these things through the teaching of the prophets who bring their knowledge and their wisdom to you as the goblet of the truth. But the true prophets are not envoys of fabulated, invented gods or tin gods. Rather, they have arisen from themselves, from their own determination, so that they are for you bringers of joyful messages and are warners for you for what you do that is of terribleness and iniquity, unfairness, as well as of unrightness and virtuelessness, by which you create unlove, unfreedom, bondage, dissonance, disharmony, and unpeace and jealousy, as well as hatred, revenge and retaliation, killing, battle, war, destruction and outrage, crime, and other lawlessness. 54. Those amongst you, however, who follow the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and the laws and recommendations of people of your kind, society, no fear and no sorrow shall come over you through misdemeanors against the standing rules and regulations, because you allow yourselves to be led, guided, by the guidance of the laws and recommendations. Those amongst you, however, who reject the signs, evidence, of the truth and of the laws and recommendations, you will be brought to account through yourselves and through a punishment of the jurisdiction for your disobedience. 55. Truly, in the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and in its laws and recommendations there are all the treasures that you can imagine, but they remain hidden to you until you turn to them and follow them. 56. And if you turn and follow the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, then your inner world, consciousness, will be open and will recognize the truth of all truth. Therefore you will also recognize that the true prophets are not liberators, angels, and not envoys of fabulated, invented gods and tin gods, but that they are people of your kind, human beings, as you are yourselves, and that their knowledge and their wisdom has not been disclosed to them by gods or tin gods, rather that they fathom out, work out everything themselves by learning the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and of its appearance, nature, in true discernment, intellect. And truly, you cannot match one another in your and their knowledge and in your and their wisdom, because you are the blind ones and the true prophets are the seeing ones, even though they do not raise themselves up above you, threaten you, but place themselves as equal with you in contentment, modesty. Truly, you should think this over. 57. Warn yourselves and be afraid that you might be gathered together and punished by people of your kind, fellow human beings, when you do things that are unrightful, so that you no longer find any friend or spokesperson, defender, to stand by you in order that you might find clemency, grace, by admitting to your unright and sincerely regretting it, so that you change yourselves and become righteous, conscientious, and fair, responsible. 58. And those amongst you who are unfair ones, irresponsible ones, and unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, do not drive out from their place those who do themselves good. Learn, in the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and who are striving for the face, flawlessness, of the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. Because as people of your kind, human beings, you are responsible for their well-being, just as they are responsible for your well-being. Therefore you shall not drive them out, so that you do not act unfairly and do not strain endanger harm your own well-being. 59. If you are unfair ones, irresponsible ones, and unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, then put yourselves to the test as to what extent you are gracious, mild, towards yourselves and gracious, mild, towards people of your kind, fellow human beings, so that you may learn to appreciate in gratitude yourselves and people of your kind, fellow human beings, and to show them deference, esteem. 60. And if you find the way to the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, then peace as well as truthfully love will come to you, also consonance, harmony, and the freedom of your inner world consciousness. And if you find the way to the real truth, then you accept yourselves and show benevolence to yourselves. And if you are connected to the truth, and you unknowingly do something evil and regret it thereafter, and knowingly, consciously, abstain, liberate yourselves from the same evil, then you can forgive yourselves as also people of your kind, fellow human beings, forgive you. 61. And truly the goblet of the truth, the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life makes it clear to you through all its signs, explanations, that you will find the way to the truth of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and that you will become one with the truth if you connect yourselves, make a bond with it. 62. The truth teaching does not recommend for you to pray to gods and tin gods or people of your kind, human beings, because you shall not follow evil cravings that are concocted, hatched, invented by people of your kind, human beings, so that you shall not be rightly led and go into confusion and serve fabulated, invented gods and tin gods and people of your kind, human beings, who raise themselves up as gods and tin gods, or as their envoys or representatives, substitutes. 63. In all things in your life, refer to the clear evidence of the activity, existence, of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, of its laws and recommendations and of its appearance, nature, so that you may always see quickly what is the real truth and what is the untruth. You alone have the might to determine, decide, what is truth and what is untruth, because you are the assessors of this. 64. Everything that you wish to see and to experience through your determinations, decisions, that is solely in your might. Therefore you shall decide yourselves and do rightfully, so that you are not malefactors, truth deniers, with regard to your determinations, decisions, and wishes. 65. The keys to what is hidden are in you yourselves, and you alone know these keys because you must open up your inner world consciousness so that you find what is hidden from you. And truly, just as everything on the land and in the waters acts, lives, according to the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and as no leaf falls from the tree and no grain starts to grow, sprout, flourishes, in the darkness of the earth, and no stalk of grass falls prey to the drought without the action of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. So also nothing prospers in you, and cannot be torn out of the darkness of what is hidden if you do not follow your own laws and recommendations regarding the development of your inner world consciousness. 66. And you shall always know what you do and create, both in the day and at night, so that you always bring everything to fulfillment, and you can tell people of your kind, fellow human beings, what your deeds have been if they want to know. 67. You, as people of your kind, human beings, are the highest life form amongst all life forms, and therefore you are your own intercessor, counselor, and the guardians over yourselves, over your thoughts and feelings, and over your doings, deeds, and therefore it remains so until death approaches you and your spirit body, spirit form, and your inner world consciousness escapes your body in order to escape into the impalpable realm of the other world, without tarrying quickly. 68. Truly, the spirit body, spirit form, returns to its own world, sphere level, of the impalpability in order to be reawakened, reincarnated, reborn, in a new body of people of your kind, human beings, at the time of necessity. 69. Truly, you alone protect yourselves and rescue yourselves from the dangers, risks, in your existence, such as on the land, on the waters, amongst the rocks, mountains, in the air, in the firmament's universe, and on the earth's, worlds, planets, when you go out everywhere to where you want, because there are none of the fabulated, invented gods and 10 gods who can vouchsafe protection for you and rescue you, because whatever is unsubstantial and delusion of the brain can neither help nor rescue nor perform miracles, outstanding things. And consider that even if you secretly call on gods and 10 gods and make supplications to them in disparaging submissiveness, or to people of your kind, human beings, who raise themselves up as godheads or as envoys and representatives, substitutes of gods and 10 gods, then they can bring you neither help nor rescue, because they are fabulated, invented. Gods and 10 gods are people of your kind, human beings, and are powerless, incapable. Therefore, any help and rescue in any wise is only provided by yourselves and in your power. 70. Rescue yourselves through your own power from your tribulation and from all things that bring you misery and disaster, because there are neither gods nor 10 gods who can liberate you from it, as well as no people of your kind, human beings, who raise themselves up as gods or 10 gods, or as their envoys or representatives, substitutes, because truly all power and all support, endeavor, lies in you yourselves. 71. And do not assume, regard the true prophets to be gods or 10 gods, or that they are their envoys or representatives, substitutes, who shall have might over you and sit in judgment over you, so that you shall come to the heights, heaven, or to the underworld of the shadows, hell, because truly the prophets are neither judges nor executioners, enforcers, nor are there any heights, heaven, in which a godhead or a 10 god carries his scepter and keeps a paradise ready for you, neither in underworld of the shadows, hell, in which a devil performs his mischief and burns you, roasts you, etc., in the fire. Therefore, if you believe in the heights, heaven, and the underworld of the shadows, hell, then you will only find both places in yourselves, in your status of the inner world, consciousness, and in your psyche and in your attitude, mentality. And truly, if you believe in the heights, heaven, and the underworld of the shadows, hell, then you are following the delusions of the false prophets who are giving you fallacious teachings and are lying to you so that you may split up into godlinesses, religions, and subgodlinesses, sex cults. So you are confused, and through false teachings you let others feel acts of Goblet and bring them through coercion to wage battle, war, to sow hatred, revenge, retaliation, and jealousy and hostility, and to bring about destruction as well as threats, terror. And guard yourselves against the manifold signs of distortion, deception, of the false prophets, so that you do not understand them as the truth, but rather recognize them as lies and slander. County 72. Therefore do not reject the truth, because only the real truth is truthfulness. Therefore you also comprehend, recognize, and know that the true prophets are not guardians over you, but are only bringers of good news with regard to the truth teaching and of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. And therefore they are only warners for you by pointing out, revealing, as a warning to you, the things of the near and far time to come, future, which you must improve and therefore change, alter, to the good, so that you are not assailed by calamity. The true prophets do not state to you good things that will occur in the near or far time to come, future, so that you do not act wrongly and do not make good into bad. Therefore the true prophets only reveal to you things of the near and far time to come, future, which are evil, bad, and disastrous, so that you may strive to regret your wrong activities, deeds, and henceforth do everything rightfully, so that the prophecy will not fulfill. 73. Truly, a certain time is set for every prophecy, at which point it will be fulfilled when you do not do your best to avert the evil, the bad, the disastrous, so you or your descendants, children's children, etc., will experience that the true prophets rightfully foresee when they name things of the near and far time to come, future. And consider, you are not to equate a prophecy of the true prophets with a prediction that true prophets use for announcing to you things of the near and far time to come, future, which are sealed, unavoidable, and which you can do nothing to change. 74. And those amongst you who talk foolishly about the prophecies and about the prediction and the explanations of the true prophets, you bear the blame if the prophetic words of the prophets come true, because you mislead yourselves and people of your kind, fellow human beings, not to listen to the discerning words of the true prophets, so that you altogether continue acting unrightfully and suggestively and forcefully bring about the evil, the bad, and the disastrous which the prophets proclaim, announce. 75. And those amongst you who listen to the words of those who mock the true prophets and their prophecies and predictions, turn yourselves away from them until they talk about something else and conduct a discussion of true discernment, rationality. And should the false prophets with their delusional teachings make you forget this, then do not sit together with the mockers and slanderers, calumniators of the true prophets after remembering again, so that you do not find yourselves in difficulties with the truth through them. 76. Be at all times righteous ones, conscientious ones, and fair ones, responsible ones, and ever, always, bear your obligation, responsibility, so that you may take the way of the truth, of equitableness, fairness, and of virtue, so true love may fill you, and peace and freedom may grow in your inner world consciousness, so that consonance, harmony, may prevail in you and in your psyche, and you may altogether carry out all these exceptional, unusual comprehensions, capabilities in order to instruct people of your kind, fellow human beings. 77. Those amongst you who are connected to the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, remain amongst yourselves and leave those alone who only take the teaching as a game and a pastime, and are infatuated by the earthly life. But admonish them so that they do not fall more and more victim to Ausartung through what they are doing, which is of unright and of unfairness, irresponsibility. Because except for you, they have neither helpers nor intercessors, counselors, unless they turn to the truth teaching and take it in, learn it, and truly, if they offer you a ransom, bribe, in order to liberate them from their truth unknowledge and from their inequity unfairness, as well as from their unaccountability, irresponsibility, and virtuelessness, because they are the belief that you might be able to take their blame off them and make them into ones knowing of the truth. Then do not accept it, because it would be unrightful, since you do not have the might to satisfy their wishes and hopes. If they do not liberate themselves from their untruth and inequity, unfairness, as well as unrighteousness, consciencelessness, by learning from the truth teaching, then they are in themselves abandoned to ruin for their own actions of the evil and of the terrible things. So they feel the pain in themselves as if they had taken a gulp of boiling water, and thereby inflict a painful punishment on themselves because they are turning away from the truth. 78. Truly, if you call upon gods and tin gods or people of your kind, human beings, who raise themselves up as gods, none of whom are able either to benefit you or harm you, then you are taking the wrong way. Therefore you shall turn around on your heels, turn away from your false belief, so that you rescue yourselves from all evil and from everything terrible, and quickly leave it behind. Do not allow yourselves to be lured away from the truth through evil and falsehood, which you call the devil, so that you do not fall into confusion. But heed, search out companions in the country who will call you to right leadership, guidance, and will reveal to you the way to the teaching of the truth, to the teaching of the Spirit, to the teaching of the life, so that you may adopt the right leadership, guidance, over yourselves, as is recommended to you through the truth teaching, as you dedicate yourselves to your own true discernment, intellect, and creating yourselves peace and love, as well as freedom and consonance, harmony. 79. You are recommended to be trustful in yourselves and confident that you can master from your own power whatever you touch, approach, because only in yourselves is all the power to act energy, given that you always build up when you undertake anything. 80. The primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, is truly the sole great wisdom, creation. It itself is the truth, the one which created the firmaments, universe, and earths, worlds, planets, and the heavenly lights, celestial bodies. And therefore it is the all-timely living one being, since the days when it created everything, and it will remain the all-timely living one being, until the day when it once again lies in slumber in order to reawaken, become existent once again, at its time, which is determined to it in the greatness of time, all great time. And truly, the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, is solely the bearer and knower of all concealments, and for people of your kind, human beings, it is the unmeasurable secret, the unfathomable inscrutable, no matter how all-knowing you may be. 81. And since only the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, is the truth of all truth, and is the unmeasurable secret, the unfathomable, inscrutable. So you are not able to make any illusions of it, as you cannot set any gods and tin gods next to it or people of your kind, human beings, who raise themselves up over you as gods or tin gods. Therefore, however, if you think differently, and if you turn to other things like the false teachings of the false prophets, then you are living in obvious confusion. 82. Raise your eyes and let your eyes wander about, over the firmaments, universe, over the heavenly lights, celestial bodies, and over your earth, so that you see what the truth of the reality is that cannot be created by people of your kind, human beings, who raise themselves up as gods or tin gods, and neither by gods and tin gods, all of whom are only fantasies of invented hazy pictures, delusions. Keep yourselves far away from the fabulations, inventions of false prophets who present illusions to you that are far from the truth and reality, so that you may count yourselves amongst the firm ones, strong ones, in the knowledge of the truth. 83. And if the night overshadows you, if you are befallen by unknowledge, then look for a light, knowledge, which rises in you so that you do not founder in the darkness of the night, in unknowledge. 84. And if you see the moon rise, how knowledge is unfolding, spreading out its light, knowledge, then follow the light, expand the knowledge so that it no longer sets, no longer disappears. So you are rightly led and are not amongst those who have gone astray. 85. And if you see the sun rise, great knowledge, spreading out its beams, wisdom, then it is the greatest thing that you can achieve, and from which you form your unfolding, evolution, which no longer sets once you have created it in yourselves. 86. Truly, if you have created radiation, wisdom, and unfolding, evolution, in yourselves, then you have no part blame in whatever the ones unknowing of the truth and unfair ones, irresponsible ones, the unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, and virtueless ones have done of evil and of terribleness of all kinds, just as you also have no part blame if they place fabulated, invented gods and tin gods next to the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, or people of your kind, human beings who raise themselves up as gods or tin gods or their envoys or representatives, substitutes. 87. Look and turn your face to the truth, to the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, which alone is the truth of all truth and alone the greatness of wisdom, creation, because it is the soul might over everything that exists in the firmaments, universe, and on the earth's, worlds, planets, as well as in the lights of the sky, firmament. Therefore you may recognize, see, this truth and be upright in your knowledge of it, so that you rely solely upon the truth and do not place any gods or tin gods next to the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and also no people of your kind, human beings, because all of these are powerless, incapable, and cannot bring forth, create any life. 88. And whether you are a clan, family, people who live nearby, neighbors, friends, companions, followers, acquaintances, or a people or several peoples, then do not fight with one another, but be fair amongst one another, and lead yourselves fairly, so that love and peace be amongst all, as well as freedom and consonance, harmony, so that you are rightly led. 89. And do not fear those who wish to sow ill blood, discord, and strife amongst you. Rather stand at their side with good words and instruct, teach them in peace, in equitableness, fairness, and in righteousness, conscientiousness, and in all things of the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, so that they may follow the right way and refrain from their terrible doings. But be peaceful to them, and do not foment hatred and unlove or revenge and retaliation in yourselves against them, because they are people of your kind, human beings, and require instruction and good leadership guidance. 90. Therefore you shall not fear those either who set gods and tin gods or people of your kind, human beings, next to the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, who believe themselves to be gods, because you have the authority to instruct them through the truth so that they may become thinking and knowing in the truth, and may find their right and their safety in the truth. 91. And if they become knowing, conscious, in the truth and in equitableness, fairness, and they do not mix these up with untruths and inequity, unfairness, then they will find their peace and be rightly led. And truly, the evidence for this will be given to them when they raise themselves up to the weight, the level, of one's knowing of the truth and become wise. 92. The laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, are given to you so that you may recognize and follow them and be led rightly in your existence, so that you may be creators of good things, and also instruct, teach your descendants, so that also your offspring, children's children, etc., may be fair ones, responsible ones, and righteous ones, conscientious ones, supporters of the truth, of equitableness, fairness, and of virtues. 93. And all in the group of the few before you who were fair ones, responsible ones, and righteous ones, conscientious ones, as well as ones knowing of the truth, they were led, guided by the goblet of the truth, which is the teaching of the prophets, the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, as is given through the truthfulness of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. Therefore you are recommended to do the same as the group of the few before you, who were your forefathers and foremothers, and from whose lines you proceeded as their descendants, children's children, etc. 94. And truly, those in the group of the few before you who were fair ones, responsible ones, righteous ones, conscientious ones, and ones knowing of the truth, they were all talented amongst people of your kind, human beings, through their own efforts, and they followed the truth as also they awakened, encouraged their brothers and sisters and their children and friends to the truth, so that they led, guided themselves on the right way. 95. Truly, that is the leadership guidance of the truth itself, so that all who turn to it take the right way out of themselves and do not pray to gods and tin gods and not to people of your kind, human beings, because doing this is an ineffective activity, fruitless without success. 96. And truly, these few before you were the ones who comprehended, recognized, the teaching of the prophets as truth and followed it and also protected the true prophethood. But those amongst you who, as far descendants, children's children, etc., have seized the dominance over all evil and iniquity, unfairness, as well as over unrighteousness, consciencelessness, and virtuelessness, you show those before you ingratitude for what they have done for you. And therefore you only show ingratitude for what the prophets do for you, who trustingly give you the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. 97. There are only few amongst you who are rightly led, guided by the teaching of the prophets, and the true prophets who do not demand any payment from you for their care, favor, effort. Not only do they teach you in modesty the teaching of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, but they teach it as an admonishment and signposting for all the mass of all people of your kind, humankind. And truly, the teaching of the prophets is no discipline, coercion, and does not bear in itself any gavalt terror, because heeding of, following of, integrating with, the teaching is given as unbiddenness, free will, so that everyone may decide for himself or herself whether he or she wants to integrate with it or not. 98. Truly, those amongst you, you do not appraise the truth and the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life correctly if you think that it reveals nothing to you that you do not already know, because truly, you are inexperienced, unknowing, in the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation, and in the laws and recommendations of its appearance, nature. Therefore a light, instruction, has to be set for you, and a leadership, guidance, has to be given through the true prophets, so that you become rightful in your thoughts and feelings and in your inner world consciousness, and follow the way of the truth. And consider whether you treat the teaching of the prophets like a shred of cheap fabric, material cloth, or whether you accept it as a valuable treasure. In this wise you show through your behavior which attitude, mentality you are the child of. Truly, even if you attempt to conceal your attitude, mentality, then it can be seen, read, in your face, so you therefore cannot conceal, hide, what your attitude, mentality is, so you earn yourselves honor or defilement from people of your kind, fellow human beings, depending on what your face reveals. 99. Truly, if you want to reveal yourselves in defilement, then continue to enjoy your wrongdoings, and continue your vain and foolish prattle which marks, stamps you as idiots, fools, until you finally allow true discernment, intellect, to come forth in you when you overcome your unintellect, dumbness, in yourselves and you deliberately, consciously, turn to the truth and the truth teaching. 100. And truly, what is being announced to you through the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and is being revealed to you through the true prophets is full of boon, prosperousness, and of what you shall follow and fulfill, master, through the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities, creation. And therefore it is the teaching of the warning, so that you shall not do things that are unrightful, and not do things of lovelessness, virtuelessness, and unrighteousness, consciencelessness, as you shall not perform bloody deeds, murder and manslaughter, not wage battles, wars, and not destroy the works, achievements, of people of your kind, human beings, just as you shall not give yourselves over to unpeace and unfreedom, bondage, dissonance, disharmony, and jealousy, nor hatred, persecution, strife, or the pathological craving for revenge and pathological craving for retaliation.